then we started saying that Doug went by Velma. Is it Velma?
corrections.
Annabelle. Good evening to the special joint City Council and Planning Commission workshop. Today is Tuesday, September 18th, 2018. It is 6 p.m. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Planning Commissioners, Commissioner Mallory Fenrich. Here. Commissioner Melissa Hughes. Commissioner Joan Stewart. Here. Vice Chair Robert Ball.
Here.
Chair John Dinan.
Here.
City Council, Councilmember Leanne Jones-Cruz. Here. Councilmember Cal Campbell.
Here.
Councilmember District 2 Cindy Fossey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Darlene Barbara Martinez.
Here.
Mayor Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Crossroads West Specific Plan Project Workshop. I want to thank the Planning Commissioners for having us at their meeting today and taking their time away from their projects that they have coming up. Due to time constraints tonight, so that we may allow the Planning Commission to conduct a regular meeting after this workshop, there will not be a question and answer segment. Tonight's presentation is for informational purposes only. We assure you that the public will be provided several opportunities in the near future to give their testimony in regard to this project. A series of formal public hearings will be scheduled and formally advertised in advance with the date, time, and location of the hearing to be conducted. If you have questions after tonight's presentation, there are some 3x5 cards in the back with pencils, and they're available for your use. Hand your questions to the city clerk at the conclusion of this workshop. You may also send an email to cityclerk@riverbank.org, which will be forwarded to the appropriate staff for a response. Questions received tonight will be gathered, and both questions and answer will be shared on the city's website as soon as possible. Public business from the floor. Pursuant to Government Code, in reference to a special meeting, the public has the opportunity to address the City Planning Commission only on items appearing on this special meeting notice. Individual comments are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Is there any public comment tonight?
Scott McRitchie, Riverbank. I'm not sure quite what you said, but I'm here on the water bills. The water bills.
You only can address what we're doing here tonight. Sorry. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move forward to item 2.1, presentation of Crossroads West project.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council and Planning Commission. Thank you for letting us impose on your normal evening tonight. So this is a joint City Council and Planning Commission workshop meant as an information and educational session on where we are at with the Crossroads West project. We thought it was necessary because, as some may know, this has been a many year effort. I think John has been with the project pretty much since the beginning, and now we are reaching a point where actual public hearings and decisions on these matters are imminent. And so, in order to sort of update the Planning Commission and City Council and community on the latest with regard to the project, get everybody sort of on the same page prior to decisions being made, we thought it was important to have this educational session so that we could discuss not only the specific plan, but also the EIR, draft EIR that was completed. John Anderson is the city's contract planner. Like I said, he's worked on this project, I think, since its inception, and has been involved in virtually every step of it along the way. He's going to give a presentation this evening. Take it away, John.
Thank you, Sean. Members of the council, members of the Planning Commission, welcome tonight. My name is John Anderson, contract planner, City of Riverbank. My address is 139 South Stockton Avenue in Ripon, California.
and I've been working on this project since day one. This is a very special night to have the Planning Commission and the City Council together. This Planning Commission is fairly new in that it hasn't had the opportunity to conduct a lot of business on large projects. The City Council, on the other hand, was involved in both the downtown specific plan adoption as well as the adoption of the specific plan for the Riverbank Industrial Complex. So this is a big project. I put on the dais a couple documents that are all available on the city's website. And I urge you to start taking a look at these now if you haven't already started to do that. The one smaller document is actually the draft specific plan that we are working with at this point. There are some changes that are being made as we speak. There's a couple sections, one section, section 9, that we're still dealing with the development group on, trying to see clarity and complete that section. The other larger document is a draft environmental document that's been out in the streets for about 90 days or so. We've already closed the initial comment period, and we're working on the what they call a final EIR to that document, which in essence is responding to the questions and concerns that have been raised so far, and then that'll be wrapped into a document along with errata sheets that will make up the final document. So as this project moves forward through the public hearing process, it'll be the specific plan, the environmental document, staff report, and conditions of the entitlement. They'll all be part of that package that you'll be asked to take a look at and ultimately render a decision on. So it's important for you to be aware those documents exist. The public is aware that they're on the city's website and they're available for review, etc. So I've got a slideshow I'm going to go through tonight. It's got about 35 slides on it, kind of take you through the project, some of the issues that we're dealing with. We've got member representatives in the audience. We have Representative Randy High with Machado family, or Machado Family Trust. They own a majority of the property in question. We also have a member representative for the Herringfield Trust family. That's George Petrolakis. And then we also have representatives from Broman Development, Daryl Broman, and his legal counsel, Mario Albert. So they're all, the majority property owners are here in the audience, and obviously they're eager to get this thing moving forward. It's been a long process. A lot of detail has been involved in this process, and ongoing discussions with school and fire and other special districts. So after having said that little intro, we'll go through this. The city, over the last 4 years, has been working to update a document called the Municipal Service Review. Municipal Service Review ultimately had to be approved by Stanislaus Lafco. That Municipal Service Review allowed Lafco to consider an expansion of the existing city's sphere of influence. This map represents, or this map illustration represents, what was ultimately adopted by LAFCO and affords the city of Riverbank the opportunity to annex property within the primary sphere of influence as indicated. And that's the crosshatch area on this diagram itself. The general plan, which was ultimately adopted back in 2008, set out a multitude of land uses in this area on the west side of Riverbank, and called out specific potential development areas 1, 2, and 3 as part of that effort, and then assigned specific land uses. The colors each represent residential or a form of residential, whether it's high density or medium density residential, community commercial, as you see down there at the north west corner of Oakdale Road in Claraville. That's where the Tulip Farm is. And then, of course, civic sites, which are illustrated in blue, and then expansion of park opportunities, expansion of the regional park that we currently enjoy on Morel, as well as other neighborhood park opportunities within the various project areas. So the plan area is defined by Clarabelle Road to the south, Oakdale Road to the east, the MID Main Canal to the north, and about halfway between Oakdale and Coffee Road. So this area is about 380 acres or so, and is comprised of this project that we're talking about, Crossroads West specific plan and annexation. So the adopted general plan within this project area, again, as I've already described, has a multitude of uses: civic, residential, commercial, and park, as well as high density and some mixed use areas. As part of the general plan adoption, there was certain annexation strategies that were presented. Those annexation strategies talked about land planning efforts that were much larger than what the city was willing to consider. So in 2014, we presented and got council to approve on very specific annexation strategies, and it gives guidance to staff as to how we're going to move forward with these projects. One, that the planning area would be contiguous to the city, meaning it's adjacent to the city. Two, that the specific plan areas would generally be 200 acres or more. However, council would have the ability to consider annexations of smaller areas based on specific findings. Annexations would require the development of a specific plan, which is what we're going through on this project. Specific plan needs to demonstrate that facilities are available, such as services and infrastructure, that there has to be sufficient right-of-ways, utilities, and agricultural buffers, all of which were contemplated as part of the 2008 general plan adoption, and that whatever we do with our streetway systems, that we ensure connectivity between the existing city as well as the future development that would be part of the annexation proposals. And that specific plans that are presented be approved according to state standard as well as those standards which are described in city code. New development areas would make sure that they would have acceptable financing strategies, whatever that be. If it's going to be self-financed or through a community facilities district or CFD district or something like that, and that be part of the proposal and part of the specific plan as we move forward. And the other one, which is pretty significant because we're dealing with significant amount of staffing time, that we concentrate on an annexation project before we move on to multiple annexation projects. So this is pretty important, that allows staff to concentrate on one project as opposed to multiple projects. Now we have the Crossroads West specific plan land use diagram. So this is in the document that's been presented. It doesn't follow the adopted general plan exactly. There'll have to be general plan modifications that are part of the ultimate action. It does, however, include a multitude of residential opportunities, medium, low, high density residential, as well as mixed use commercial opportunities, both around the Tulip Farm or the Bosio McCrane property, as well as at the intersection of Morel and Oakdale Road. Also includes expansion of the regional sports complex on Morel, and then a proposed linear storm park basin system along a new collector road, which would be extended from Morel southerly to a new intersection at Clarabelle Road in this approximate location within this site plan. So that doesn't really show up, sorry. Elements of the specific plan include land use, which I've just illustrated, circulation and alternative forms of transportation, public services and facilities, infrastructure, which includes water, sewer, and storm drain, design guidelines relative to architecture, project financing, which I've talked about, and then ultimately implementation and administration of the plan. So the land use diagram and the exhibits kind of break down in this way. It's kind of a range. However, it's the average density that's considered as part of this overall project. So as we go through implementation of this project, the average densities anticipated are the ones that we're going to be really focusing in on as this project moves forward. As it relates to the MU1 or MU2 properties, MU1 being the Tulip Farm property or Bosio McCrane property, it is designed to provide flexibility, to generate commercial opportunity as well as residential opportunity, based on a design that will ultimately be presented by the Broman Development Group, who have an option contract with Bosio McCrane on that property. So circulation, talked about the new north-south collector. We're talking about extension of Crawford Road to that, and then a new alignment for Crawford Road such that the existing Crawford Road westerly of this site basically gets terminated into this project. And I've got another exhibit on that. We were showing extension of Crawford Road that I've just talked about, obviously improvements to Morel, and then ultimate connection, north and south between Morel and Clarabelle. At Clarabelle and the new north-south collector, there is a proposal for a new signalized intersection at that location. That signalized intersection is also part of the city's master plan for infrastructure. So what are we talking about doing with Oakdale Road? Well, Oakdale Road is pretty much built out in certain areas. For example, Crawford Road South. However, there's going to be some improvement as it relates to a combined pedestrian bike path that currently exists on the east side of Oakdale Road. We'll end up creating a similar facility on the west side, so you have that opportunity on the west side as well. But in essence, north-south, what you see out there from Crawford Road south is what we would be building, Crawford Road north towards Morel. Circulation, again, we're looking at potential roundabout at Morel and the new north-south collector, potential roundabout at Crawford and the north-south collector, and then an emergency access point out to Old Crawford Road, which is illustrated in this plan. Crawford Morel would look like this. The walled segments may or may not exist along Morel, depending on what happens with the actual site development. We'd prefer there not be walls along Morel. Crawford Road, on the other hand, we're in essence attempting to match what we have on the east side of Oakdale Road on the west side of Oakdale Road along Crawford Road with the wall and pedestrian treatment and then landscaping. The circulation and EVA for Crawford Road, and there's a lot of folks probably in the audience tonight that live along Crawford Road that are very concerned with what's going to happen with this. Crawford Road, as part of the general plan that was ultimately adopted, became a discontinuous roadway segment as part of the circulation element of the general plan. It's clearly indicated that traffic would not continue westerly from this new urban development area towards Coffee Road, and there would have to be a new alignment. So that's what we've suggested. The improvements here for EVA, emergency access, and cul-de-sac or roundabout would be built within this development project and would not be a burden on the property owners that are residing in ranchettes along Crawford Road. So that talks about circulation, and then of course we got the north-south collector, which I've talked about in a couple areas. So because this north-south collector, and I have to go back a couple slides, south of Morel has a park storm drain component on the west side, you end up with a cross-section similar to this, where you would have a park storm drain basin on the west edge, you'd have pedestrian and bicycle component, and then you'd have your street section. And the idea is that we would not have a wall along that street section and may end up with something other than a wall as a treatment between this park area, storm drain component, as well as the street itself. Water is an integral part of the overall development. We have to build a water network system. You'll see that we're suggesting 12-inch water network system, which is consistent with the city's master plan out in this area. Two exceptions. One is that we would need a new domestic water well site. A site has been selected up in the north, up adjacent to the MID main canal. At some point, as a trigger, as part of this development, there will be a new municipal water well delivered as part of this project. The other is that there needs to be a peaking reservoir to help even out the domestic demands that we currently have out in this area. So again, at some point throughout the development of this project, a peaking reservoir will be part of it and will be planned in the southern portion of the project. Sewer is pretty much, plug and play in this project area, meaning that, we're going to be connecting up to the existing sewer network system in Crawford and Morel. The difficulty is that we have a couple different sewer pump stations that are working at capacity, and there'll need to be significant work to those pump stations and potentially a new outfall to the sewer treatment plant, all of which are part of the city's sewer master plan. But these would be specific project obligations that would need to be met in order for the property to be developed to its ultimate potential. Storm drain I've touched on just generally. Storm drain system is as illustrated. The Bosio-McCrane, the Tulip property, is designed to drain back towards the Crossroads commercial area. It would rely on the storm drain facility and pump station that was built there, and then ultimately discharge into MID Lateral 6 through an adjusted contract with Modesto Irrigation District. And the properties north of MID Lateral 6 would drain into the linear park storm drain basin along the new north-south collector, and then ultimately would drain back towards the expanded regional park, and then with a new discharge point into the MID main lateral, and a new franchise agreement negotiated between Modesto Irrigation District and the city of Riverbank for that discharge. So, storm drain, one of the things that we're going to be dealing with on every single one of these projects is we got to comply with new state and federal standards relative to storm water pretreatment. So you're going to be seeing, this type of pretreatment with the storm drain systems that are ultimately designed within this project. So it's a grassy swale, not only for parking lots, but also for some of the park components that we're working with. Parks and Recreation, a big part of this project. Obviously, we've got this linear park system that's being proposed along the new north-south collector, as well as an expansion of the regional sports complex along Morel. So this would represent a conceptual drawing of what that expansion might consist of, up adjacent to a new residential neighborhood to be built sometime in the future north of Morel. The specific plan includes an architectural component, not only for the residential elements of this project, but also for the commercial components of the project. And then we deal with the environmental impacts. So under the California Environmental Quality Act, we're under obligation to prepare an environmental impact report. This draft EIR includes a number of different sections, of which I've illustrated what those sections are. Some of the highlights: ag mitigation. One of the things the city had to deal with was to adopt an ag strategy as part of the LAFCO proceedings for MSR adoption and sphere expansion, and we've adopted a conversion obligation of 1-to-1. So that's already embodied within the entitlements within the city's codes, and this will be an obligation of the residential development within this area. Biological resources. This property, by and large, is used for foraging habitat by the Swainson hawk. It's a row crop. It's not planted in trees or vines, and therefore it is considered Swainson foraging habitat, and accordingly has an obligation for mitigation in that regard. So it's been suggested as part of the EIR that this is what will be required for 1 acre of land removed. Basically 0.75 acres would be required elsewhere in some kind of mitigation. Public services, somewhere along Crawford Road, Stanislaus Consolidated Fire will identify a new fire station site for this west side of Riverbank. The site will be somewhere between 1 and 3 acres. That's what's been discussed. The property owners are negotiating with Consolidated Fire for an appropriate location. There's a couple different locations. There's an existing site that they own easterly of Oakdale Road that may be sufficient size and location, or they may be more interested in a new location somewhere along Crawford Road. That's yet to be determined, but there will be a fire station as part of this overall development project. Sylvan Unified School District, as an integral part of this whole project. They have made it very clear to us that they need not only an elementary school, but a middle school within this project area. Their preference would be that the two schools would be located right next to each other. We've told them we have grave concerns regarding peaking of traffic, both at pickup and also delivery of students and teachers. So we've asked that those sites be separated. These asterisks do nothing more than suggest possible locations. Sylvan School District would really like to have the school site located south of Morel. They're not excited about having a school site north of Morel. So that's, again, something that will be finalized, with the development teams as we go through the mapping effort as part of this project after annexation. But regardless, we're going to end up with a middle school and an elementary school within this 380-acre plan area. So I talked about this briefly, but this information, the specific plan, the EIR, and all the backup information is available in the city's website. As more and more information becomes available, we're going to make sure that information gets loaded as soon as it possibly can. And this just illustrates, what is the website link and what documents are currently available there. And that's what I wanted to make sure you're aware that these are there. So notice of prep, the draft specific plan, the draft environmental impact report, the appendices, which includes the notice of prep, greenhouse gas evaluation, cultural resources, phase 1, which is an environmental assessment, noise, traffic, water supply, and urban decay. And then, of course, the comments that we received to date based on that draft environmental impact report. So the next slide kind of tells you, where are we? So we're finalizing the specific plan. We're finalizing the comments to the draft EIR, and we'll be embracing those in a final EIR. It's our hope that we can get to the Planning Commission November of this year and off to the City Council in December of this year as well, and then package this application up off to LAFCO for some kind of action spring of 2019. So that's really where we're at right now. It's a lot of documentation. It's very important that we had this workshop, give you guys the opportunity to become aware of it, be aware of the documents that are available to you, and at least hear a little bit about the project and what we've been working on. So anyway, so I'm here to answer questions or respond to what the mayor would like me to respond to.
Questions, comments for John? Okay, for the, John, for the ones that, when we cul-de-sac Crawford Road, or my concern is emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
Is there some type of,
So this represents, it's an illustrative representation of what that might look like. You'd have a cul-de-sac at both ends, and you'd have an EVA gate, so it'd be electronically controlled.
okay, all right.
Electronically controlled.
Thank
So
you.
the fire department on the fly will be able to open up that gate. Yeah, absolutely. And the fire department will be involved in the ultimate review and consideration of what that is.
John, I have a question.
Yeah.
What size are the two schools going to be, population-wise?
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. I mean, in acres or the number of students to be housed?
A number of students.
Okay, so elementary school, I think up to 800 students, something like that. And middle school could be probably up to 1,200 students, something like that. I mean, I think initially they're talking about, 600 students for elementary and maybe around 1,000 for middle school. But if you look at what they've done, historically throughout the district, I think, 800 for elementary and about 1,200 for middle school.
Okay, thank you.
So another thing that's important to point out on the middle school is that the residents within the existing Crossroads development have participated in a portion of this middle school, meaning that through the financing mechanisms that were approved when that project was approved, a portion of this middle school has been funded through that effort. Not all of it, but a portion of it. So the idea is that this project would then, through the payment of impact fees, would pay its fair share. And I think between the two projects and maybe just a little bit of outside development, it would be 100% funded through those efforts.
John, does your team have any Okay. I have just a couple more. Do you, as we move forward with these agreements that we have to come up with, some of the amenities have to be available to those residents that occupy shortly after occupying and not delay the amenities as we build out. So that has to be quite clear that we can't restrict those amenities until someone else is satisfied. That has to be available as soon as practical. And as we go forward in our agreements, that we have to make sure that, I'm sure a lot of people here are concerned about fair share and paying for itself. So, and I know that we're working on those agreements. 380 plus acres, that's a lot of development in those 380 acres. So we have to really be careful about that. And it's small, but it's doable. It's not the large ones that the other cities have been doing. Any others?
Can you go back to the slide that shows the housing element? There was like housing element and like mixed use. Was there a slide that was like that too?
Well, I can show you a slide that the land use like this, that
Yes.
shows the matrix and what's anticipated and then corresponds with the colors on the map. If this is what you're referring to, which shows you the number of units possible, acres that are designated. Yes. So for example, single-family residential or LDR, average density is 6.5. 6.5 units. MDR average is 12. High density would be, it's hard for me to read that, but 20.5, I think, or something. And then public. And then you've got the mixed use 1 and mixed use 2. Mixed use 1 is the Tulip area. That's Bosnia McCrane. Mixed use 2 is up at Morel and Oakdale Road.
Okay, that helps. Thank
Okay.
you.
I have another question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Did I hear you correctly that you said Consolidated already owns the facility?
No, they do not own. They're they're in discussions. I need to be light on that comment. They're in discussions with the property owners. Yes.
My question is, you mentioned that there's going to be an extended road going from from Patterson all the way to Clarabelle?
No, not from Patterson. Basically from Morel.
Okay.
So from Morel. So you're talking about the new north-south collector. Hang on, let me get back here.
Had it back there.
Yeah.
So, did I have it? Did I just go past it?
Right there.
Boom. So this has a pointer, but it doesn't work on the TV. So basically from Morel south to Clarabelle.
Okay.
Does not go across the main into the residential neighborhoods to the north. No, it does not.
Is it just going to be a 2-lane or?
So, so you want to see what that looks like? Let me go back to that slide because I have that specifically here. North-south collector. That's what it would look like. So it would be 2 lanes, but parking on both sides. So that's the cross section. That's what it would look like, adjacent to the proposed park storm drain concept.
Any others? Okay. I did ask. I will ask again. He wanted to make sure that the planning commissioners had a chance to ask. Give me one more, because this will be coming before you. There's a lot more discussion coming on up. So I appreciate the time.
I thank the mayor and the planning commission for being willing to do this, because there's a lot of documentation to be coming forward, and it's easier to kind of break it down a little bit in advance so you get a chance to look at it. And then if you have questions as you're going through those documents, feel free to give Donna or I a call, and we can do our best to get the information to you or respond to a question or concern that you have.
John, before you go on, could you summarize just briefly the different types of agreements that they're likely to see here in the next couple months?
So part of this overall effort, the project as described, includes a general plan change. I've talked about that. We're shifting land uses around. It includes the adoption of a specific plan. It includes a proposal to annex the property into the city of Riverbank. And then the development teams, the respective development teams, the residential developers north of MID Lateral 6 and the commercial developers south of Lateral 6, both are working on maps, large lot maps, and they're also working on development agreements, which will set out certain terms and conditions relative to vested rights, relative to reimbursements for capital improvements that are in the system development fee program, and relative to the term of the agreement, capacities in infrastructure, that kind of stuff. So those will likely be part of, the action that the Planning Commission and the City Council will ultimately be asked to take.
So the plan for that, I know there's a lot of work to do, but when we go to the Planning Commission in November, all of those documents have to be completed. So those completed documentation then goes to the City Council. Once we review those and it comes to the final, then we can apply to LAFCO, and we have to have a 90-day, a minimum 90-day period before it goes to the LAFCO board. Commission, sorry. So that's the timeline. A lot of information, and if you haven't read the EIR or the specific plan, please do. It's a lot of fun reading. With that, I don't have staff comments, do I? Nope. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, very good job. That's pretty good, 37 minutes. Good job.